So welcome back. Back in the workshop, as you can see, slightly different project for today. My 7 1/4 Ginty. I've decided to take a look at the Superheaters. Just a little bit of a let's see what we can improve type of thing. Not strictly speaking necessary, because there's nothing wrong with what's in there at the moment. It's just potentially could be better. Before we start looking at what's wrong with that, I'm going to have a quick word about superheaters, what they are, how they work, what's best for them. But that'll be easier to show you with a boiler. Now you may recognise this. This is for a 5-inch Ginty. I've been doing some repair work to it. I do it every now and again. It's getting there. I think I've only got 1 leak left to try and sort, but hopefully that will be done next time I'm at the club. But you have a boiler, firebox here, so lots of heat from the fire, which then travels up the tubes. There are, on this engine, 3 large tubes, which is where the superheaters run down. Now the ones which came out of this engine look like this. So you have 3 sets of tubes which run up into a block at the other end and back down to go to the steam pipe. The intention is you put the normal steam from the boiler up the tube, it gets heated again without water around, so it can get extra hot, and then it gets more expansive, more bigger, to be in the cylinders and do as much work as you can, get as much power out of that steam as you can. These superheaters, if I live about there in reality, so you've only actually got those tips in the fire. Now there are 2 types of superheaters in that respect. There's either radiant superheaters, which sit across the fire like that, or there's non-radiants, which just travel up the tube. Personally, I'm not a fan of ones that just go up the tube. All superheaters are something else which can go wrong. But if they're not going into the firebox, you get very little extra energy from those superheaters than you do compared to them being in the firebox. I hear people say, so why did the designers design them to only be that long? Well, back in the day when Martin Evans, LBSC were around, the technology wasn't really there to TIG weld and stainless steel weld at home. So anything that was in the firebox has to be able to withstand extreme heat. So we just didn't have the home technology to deal with that kind of structure. But these days we do. I personally have TIG at home, but some clubs have it available. You can easily find people who can do it for you. So these ones will eventually go back in this, but I personally believe it would benefit from them going further back in the firebox. This engine is almost a scaled up version of this. It's got a similar number of tubes, similar number of everything really. However, it only has 1 superheater element, which does come back into the firebox, but there's 2 flues which are empty. So those big flues do you a bit of harm actually. The gas is travelling up there and not really getting the heat to the boiler as well as it could. So I'm going to put a set of 3 superheaters into the boiler. We will discuss shortly what type of superheaters I'm going to make, because it will become clearer when I talk to you, when I show you it being made. These are 2 tubes running up the flue and then back again. The ones I'm going to make are 1 big tube with a smaller tube inside, so the concentric tube type superheater. And I'm going to make it entirely out of stainless steel, fully TIG welded, up to the point of possibly the pipe going to the header. So let's begin. I'll show you what's going on inside the smoke box for this engine. So you can see the header joint onto the boiler, comes down, the union there, which is fantastic, so I haven't even got to disturb the bush. And this has just got 1 tube up and then back down the same pipe, and there is a union here as well. So this pipe I will take off and I will try and recreate the superheaters up to this point. We'll take a look underneath actually, just to see what is going on inside. There you see, the superheaters do come, or superheater comes to the back of the firebox. So that is good. But like I say, I will replace this one, but because it's got those flanges there, the unions, I haven't actually wasted what's there. I can always put it back if I have a problem with the ones I'm making. So the old superheaters are out. Next door I have started on the header, but you probably can't see, I used a pair of dividers to get the whole centres of the superheater flues. On a piece of the biggest tube, I've punched a hole towards the end there, and I'll use the dividers to mark where the centre of the next tube wants to be, and then I'll do the same again for the next one after I've punched that. Then I can chop it to length, drill 3 holes and take it from there. So with this being the dry header, I want the smaller tube to go right through and out the other side. So what I'm going to do is drill from the top right through until it comes out the bottom, and then I'm going to drill the bigger hole on this side. We'll find the drill bits, drill through, and it will start to make sense as we get closer. So with them drilled, what I've just done, I offered the header into the smoke box with the smaller tube through it. I pushed the header up to the tube plate. I then pushed the inner tube right to the end, and that is how much was stuck out. So I need to cut that a little bit shorter than that even, to give space for the gas to come out the end and go round again. So there's two of the tubes. What I've done is I've just set it there, and I'm going to weld around these and then put the third one in, but obviously I can't do that sat there because the bottom of the vise is in the way, so I'll have to get a bit creative with that one. So I'll get these welded up, then we can talk about the outside. So before I start this, I'll just point out, as the inner tube is slightly proud of the outer, it may well be that I don't need much filler rod. So I don't know if you'll manage to see this, but let's go. Bit hot. A bit hot really, but I'll turn it down for the next ones. Well, that looks all right. Just put the tubes on the outside. So my highly accurate way of working out how much to cut off this tube is to put the inner through. That's up to where it will go, and I've set it possibly a bit too far at the moment. I'll slacken it off and I'll move up until the end of this is probably about 1/4 of an inch from the end. Then I can cut it off, make sure a plug goes in the end or a cap over the outside, and we'll be good. So before I weld them, maybe I'll make some plugs to go in the end first. But what I'm going to do is, because you can get that rattle, obviously I'm rattling the outside, but when they're all welded up, when you're driving in the car, they bounce and the inner tube bounces. So what I'm going to do is just put a bit of a bend, I'll need 2 hands for it, but put a bit of a bend on that tube so that it pushes against the inside of this and stays in one place. Something like that. Now when I put the tubes on, it will all sit nice and solid.
So the end cap is machined, put in the end of the tube, just need to weld it up. And of course now I've got a big thick end cap in there, I need a bit more current. Maybe not that much. Fine balancing act.
So hopefully you're starting to see how this works. The steam will be admitted into this header here. I still need to make a fitting to go on the top of this. From there it's spread right across and heads up the outside of those 3 bigger tubes, runs up the end, then heads back down the centre tube and comes out the end here, which is where I need to put a hot header on this end. So for the end plugs, I just used a piece of the same bar which I used for those end plugs, but because this tube is slightly bigger, I just sliced off a piece that sits inside and then I'll run a weld around it. So next up, we need to get the steam from these 3 pipes joined together and coming out as one piece. Now, the piece which was on the old superheater has a 1/2 inch 26 thread. So I've had a hunt and I've managed to find a 1/2 inch 26 die. So I can make a fitting out of this piece of stainless, turned down to 1/2 inch 26 to be the steam pipe on the outlet. And I've used another piece of this tube split down to make a channel section that can sit on there. So there's a nice space for that to collect, and then I'll make and weld in that fitting on top. What I might do as well, I haven't decided how to close the ends up yet, but I might just slit down it a couple of times, fold them down and weld it up. That might be easier than making end caps that cover over the end. So we'll give that a go and see what happens. Worst case scenario, we cut it off and start again. So let's go. And there we go. Machined, fitted in, just needs welding down. So if I weld this in place, then we can look at sealing the ends. Then all that's left to worry about is getting the steam into the thing. But we'll think about that in a moment because there's a couple of options. And there we go. So yes, on the ends, I tried this end first. I sliced in 3 or 4 places, then hammered them down, sliced the same gaps again, knocked it down again, and that was enough. So I did the same at the other end, which, okay, it's not the prettiest of things, but does the job, and it's going to be stuck in a smoke box. So all that's left now is to get the steam into the wet header, but that's all very hot at the moment, so I'm going to leave it for the time being. I'll put it in the smoke box, see what it looks like. So with the superheaters pushed in, as you can see, I've made a new nut to go on there. I just need to work out the little bit of pipe that goes in between. Now, I was thinking about making a stainless pipe to go. Then that's very solid. You know what, I think I still will do that. But I'm going to have to machine it. But my other option was, which I'm going to have a cup of tea and think about it. My other option is, I found a piece of stainless tube that's too big. And in fact, the bore is the size that the pipe needs to be. But I could weld that to the superheater and then silver solder in a piece of copper to go from there to the union. That way I've got a bit more control over what I'm doing, and I've got a bit of flexibility with annealing and stuff. So yes, I'm going to do the copper. I really am in 2 minds about that, because a bit of me wants it to be entirely stainless, so there's nothing copper to go wrong. But at least if I do that, I can just cut off this if it ever does become a problem. So here we go. So with a bit of jiggery pokery, we are now fitted. It does mean there's one tube there that I can't sweep, but that's where we're at. I couldn't turn the block there, partly because I didn't take it off, and partly because there's 2 bolts through it, so it wouldn't turn. So there we are. Just need to refit the pipe down to the steam pipe here, which I have already annealed in the other room, and refit my brake ejector pipe, which had to come out just to get the header in. And we're done. Now, like I said to you at the beginning of the video, I think I said it was a few days ago now, that's it for the season for this engine, and this was a winter job that I've just wanted to get out of the way, because that way I know that it's done. But things have changed, and an opportunity has arisen to take it to Hemsby this week. Now, since that will be the last opportunity I ever get, most likely, it's an opportunity worth taking. So I've been rushing to get it done today, because tomorrow it goes in the car, and tomorrow we're going out for the evening, and the day after we're going up there. So yeah, it had to be done today. I think we're done. I think we're good to go. Now let's go and take a look at it going up northish. So let's go and have a play. I'm pleased to say that after a few hours running, she's going beautifully. The Superheater seems to be fine. It's doing everything it should do. Whether it's any better than it was before, I don't know, but it makes me feel better. So, I hope you've enjoyed that. I will leave you with a clip of this going, and thanks for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Take care.